Hello and welcome back to the Pro Football Historian channel. I'm your host, Flynn Gibbon. And let's talk about the Sunday and also the Monday night game that happened this week, Week 17 of the NFL. The first game would be the Rams and the Ravens. This game came down to the very end. I would say for the most part, the first half, first three quarters, Stafford struggled. Obviously, he threw a pick six really early on in the game, which was the first quarter. And then he threw another pick down the middle on a looked like some kind of post route or something to Odell Beckham Jr. And I think Chuck Clark got that as well. Um, it's been a few weeks of Stafford struggling. I don't know if he's still injured. No clue. But they're still getting the ball to Cup. Wasn't Cup's biggest day, but he's still so we got a realistic shot of breaking some records next week. And the Rams got stuff to play for. Same for Baltimore. They're now eliminated because of this game, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, Pittsburgh's above them. And you got the Colts also can make the playoffs. They're probably going to be the team that makes it over them. And then, unfortunate end of the season for the Ravens, losing five straight. And we'll play next week against Pittsburgh, which they have something to play for. So maybe it's six. Not away to end the season. Just the injuries. The story of their season's kind of been the injuries, and obviously when Lamar went down, that just added to their problems. And obviously Lamar wasn't playing great at the time of his injuries. Just a lot of things came together, and they just couldn't overcome it. For the Rams, they had a struggle in the middle of the season, but I think they won five straight or something like that right now. So they're looking good. Von Mauer got a couple sacks, so it's good for them. They are now playing for that second seed. If they win, if they lose, there's a chance they could even drop to the fifth seed. So we'll see about that. Let's go to the next game, Buffalo, Atlanta. This game, Buffalo kind of dominated. The score might not have shown it at times. Atlanta, they had they had really one good drive, I would say. And that came off of the Josh Allen interception early in the game. Josh Allen statistically looks really bad with three picks, no touchdowns, and completing less than half his passes. But I don't know. It was just a snow game, and it was some unfortunate breaks. But some of the interceptions weren't great either. I don't expect this to happen regularly. And Buffalo did what they needed to do. They win next week. They won the division. Otherwise, they would need if they lose, they would need help from Miami to beat New England to keep that number 4 seed. But there's a chance they can, be the 3. We'll see. They're most likely going to win the division. They play the Jets, so Jets playing a little bit better ball, so which we'll be talking about later. This game we'll go over a little quickly. It's a game where the Giants had like negative 10 passing yards for the sacks. Glennon was 4 of 11, 2 interceptions. No player had more than 2 catches, and it was a running back. To have 4 completions the entire game is just, I don't know what's like. It was horrible, and you could kind of tell this game was over so quickly. First play, I believe, was a sack fumble or something like that. Next drive was an interception pretty quickly. And middle of the first quarter, it was 10-0, and Giants haven't scored 10 points in a long time, I would think. So actually, I think the Chargers might have been the last game, but I thought that was garbage time points. Bears defense dominated, looking a little bit better, but I think they've played some, not great teams recently. Just help the cause. For both of these teams, we'll see if they're keeping their coaches or not. I would say this is the first time I felt like for the Giants that Joe Judge could be in trouble. He's the press conference didn't go over great with a lot of people, and at least for the Bears, Matt Nagy's been. Most people are assuming he's going to be fired. Moving on, very competitive and close game here for the Chiefs. Chiefs were up pretty big early on in this game. It was 21-7 at one point, and then it was like 28-14. They just struggled in the second half. It really was mostly the passing game that struggled. Mahomes and the passing offense did very little later in the game, especially in the second half. Run game did fine. Don't really have much complaints about that. And they let the Bengals pass offense, especially Jamar Chase, wreak havoc, and they played a little bit too much man. There's many times they just left their corners on the island, and especially in the 3rd and 27 late in the game. I know they're worried about maybe getting the Chiefs in field goal range, but in that case, stopping the Bengals for a field goal with like over 2 minutes, I don't think that's the worst thing. And instead, they let the Bengals kick a field goal with no time remaining, which basically ended the game. So now the Chiefs are not the number 1 seed at the moment. They would need help to get that next week, and need help from Houston to beat the Tennessee Titans. And the Bengals win their division for the first time since 2015. Let's move on. Disappointing game for the Colts here. The Raiders played better. I think even the Colts had kind of luck. Was a lucky touchdown to T.Y. Hilton. They also had some interception from Carr. They overcame all that and won the game in regulation with no time remaining on a field goal. Raiders still alive. They will be playing for the playoffs next week against the Chargers. And for the Colts, they win, they're in. They lose, they need some help from Baltimore, as well as we won't talk about ties, but the Raiders Chargers game that ends in a tie, that could affect some things as well. Again, this point for the Colts, they've been playing good, and just to lay an egg like that. Yep. Good story for the Raiders, though. If they can make the playoffs after all this, you would be impressed to be at the John Gruden situation. You got Henry Ruggs, all this, all year, and they're 1 game away from the playoffs. This game, even though I think Lawrence made some decent throws, not all the interceptions were on him. The 3 that he threw, the Patriots just clearly the better team. This game never looked like the Jags were going to win. And again, puts New England in position to win the division if they get help from the Jets. And they also need to beat Miami, which is a team they lost in week 1 to. Probably should have won that game, honestly. But anyway, and then the Jags, it's looking like they might have the number 1 pick if they lose to the Colts. But if they beat the Colts, that also helps Pittsburgh and teams like that. So we'll see. This game, obviously there was a Antonio Brown situation. We won't really discuss that. That's still an ongoing story, and I really don't need to add my opinion to that. Jets feel like they outplayed the Bucks pretty much the whole game. I don't know why late in the game, in the very end, they played like they didn't play soft. Like they just played like normal defenses, worried about giving up 5-10 yard completions, and instead they gave up 20-30 yard throws, which allowed Tampa Bay to move down the field and win the game. And also the 4th down play, again, I don't know exactly what happened. Obviously, they sneaked it when it could have been a reverse or whatever to, Barrios. Again, miscommunication, whatever. Gave the Bucks a chance, and the Bucks, they took care of business. Still in a good spot. 3rd seed, I believe, right now. They could just beat the Panthers next week. It will either be the 3rd or 2nd seed. And they have a couple injuries recently, which is hurting the football team. Ronald Jones even got hurt. So again, we might be Le'Veon Bell and Vaughn in the playoffs. Really don't know. Receiver wise is Mike Evans, and then a bunch of guys that that you've seen them play, and they just I don't know. They're gonna have to be counted on now. And again, Jets. One last thing I'll say about them: Zach Wilson looked pretty good the last couple games. Stat wise, might not always show it, but he's thrown. He's been very accurate, and he's looking like an NFL quarterback. That's all I could really say. This game, Miami, Tua Tagovailoa, and that offense just couldn't do anything. I felt like defensively it was pretty close, similar. They do similar things, and ultimately it was just Miami offense was just so bad that Tennessee had a lot of shorter fields, and they just controlled the game. And they obviously ran the ball pretty well, had the ball a lot. Passing offense wasn't great, but came out of the victory for Miami. It basically ends their season kind of like Baltimore. Tennessee is now the number one seed right now. They win, they keep that number one seed. Be interesting to get Derrick Henry back because that changes their football team. But they've shown they can run the ball without Henry if they need to. This game, football team started off pretty well. Eagles supposed to start again, and late it came down to the very end. The Eagles dominated the second half, and they won on a game-ending interception by Rodney McLeod. And now the Eagles are in the playoffs. So I don't think a lot of people would have picked the Eagles in the playoffs this year, but that's what's happened. The football team this season's over. Obviously, next season they got some quarterback thing, situation to solve. Don't know if they need a lot more to their team. They got some decent pieces, and some young guys that haven't really played that might get a bigger role next year. Either way, we'll talk about off season and next season when it gets there. Let's move on. I will say for the Eagles, though, they could be the sixth seed if the Saints get in when the 49ers lose next week, but they look like they're going to be the seventh seed. We'll see, though. Denver came into this game and did almost nothing offensively. Chargers, they lost to the Broncos earlier, and that was not the case today. It was a decent game by Herbert, and the run game played decent. Defensively played pretty well, and Drew Lock and that offense just couldn't get anything going. I know Lock got hurt, or maybe first half sometime, but Rip only threw like 2 passes, and Denver season's now over. Chargers winning, get in playoff situation next week on Sunday Night Football. I'm gonna think they match up well with the Raiders, and I think they're gonna win that game. But I'll talk about it later in the week. Even though it would be a great story for the Raiders to get in, I think the Chargers is the better team, match up better, and I think they have more more ways to win. They obviously have some weaknesses as well. But moving on, I would say this Trey Lance is the most optimistic you'd be about him. He looked pretty well. He had a bad interception, but looked pretty good. 49ers changed how they play offense. They attacked outside the numbers. They threw deep passes. Completely different attack from the 49ers. Texans, they played some better football recently, but just wasn't enough even with the 7-0 start. And now the 49ers win and get in. They're in the playoffs, 6th seed. They lose and the Saints win, and they are out. So 6th or 7th seed is what is going to be likely for the 49ers. Again, they could be out, though. If they lose to the Rams, a team they've won the last few matchups, I think the last 5. And Saints obviously lost to Atlanta, so we'll see about that. one of the more fascinating games this week. Arizona, Kyle Murray, wins again in AT&T Stadium. Cowboys offense just struggled a bit, and I'm thinking that people just have a read on this offense for Dallas, and that's why they struggled in some games. It could be Prescott. He is missing some throws, so it could be that too. Run game again wasn't there. That's another factor. But a lot of teams just seem like Broncos, now the Cardinals, seem to have some read on the Kellen Moore offense or Mike McCarthy. This whatever mixture of offenses. And another day they just didn't play well. Played better late when they went in that hurry up offense type late in the game. And the Cardinals, they did what they needed to. It wasn't great, but had some long drives and they got a win finally after a 3-game losing streak. Puts in position the 5th seed right now. Again, they could be the 4th with some help. Panthers, Saints. Again, Panthers can't do much offensively. They scored in the second quarter to get 10 points, and then they just didn't do anything after that. And the Saints, they had a couple drives later in the game. And in the fourth quarter, they took the lead, and they didn't relinquish it. So, again, Panthers, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, struggles. They can't run the ball, can't pass the ball. They got a receiver, so they even got some decent running back. I mean, obviously, McCaffrey's not playing, but the defense is pretty good. I mean, this is an interesting team to see what happens with the quarterback situation and to see if I would assume Matt Rule will come back, but you never know. For the Saints, again, I just kind of talk about their situation. Have a shot next week to get in. This was a kind of meaningless game, even though it keeps the Lions at the number 2 pick in the draft. Seahawks, finally the offense looked pretty good. Russell Wilson did what he needed to. 4 touchdowns. Penny looked great again. Even Amon St. Brown for the Lions looked good. So Tim Boyle threw 3 interceptions though. And Seattle, came out with a 51-29 victory. So you got one more game, and a lot could change in Seattle coming up in the off season. The Lions, they just they've looked better recently, but not a great day defensively yesterday. This game was the end of the Viking season, you can call it. And Packers clinched the number 1 seed. Other than that, we saw a little bit of Kellen Mond finally. Saw Mannion played for his quarterback, but Packers offense after that first quarter where they didn't do much looked really good. We'll let you know the rest of the game. There's another slow start for Packers. I don't know how concerning that will be. They just got a lot of moving parts right now, and it's really, I could say they, have next week against the Lions. We'll see what they do if they're playing starters. It's like a preseason game. Who knows how that's going to be? For the Vikings, a lot of questions, and people don't talk about that. Kirk Cousins is no guarantee to be back with that team. You can't really franchise tag him since you've already been tagged so many times beforehand. With Washington, that still matters. So I don't know if they're reworking the deal. I don't know if they give him a new deal. He has all the leverage. If he wants out, he can. If he wants to stay, he can. So, it's not like the Vikings. That's why they drafted Kellen Mond to have a backup plan. But, obviously he hasn't been ready. Maybe they'll think he'll be ready next year, but kind of situation they've been in. And Packers are a little bit different situation. What's happening with Rodgers and what's happening with Love? Do they keep both? Do they trade one? Again, and the playoffs will matter. We'll see where they go if they can go all the way. Moving on. Steelers Browns. After I knew the Browns were out of the playoffs, I kind of felt like the Steelers were going to win this game. Emotional game for Ben Roethlisberger. Looks like it's going to be his last home game. Looks more and more like that. They treated it like it was the last home game. it seems like that would be it for Ben in Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Got one more game against the Ravens, and they have a chance to make the playoffs with some help. And Browns, Baker Mayfield really struggled first half, was a little bit better in second half, but offensive line struggled, got sacked a lot. Now TJ Watt's like one sack away, I think, from the record with the big performance. He had 4 sacks. So, and he hasn't been played like, I'm going to assume he's played 14, 15 games maybe. So, really impressive. I'm thinking he should be Defensive Player of the Year now. I know Diggs has 11 interceptions. There's some other guys with a lot of sacks. But he's playing the Ravens. He's already got like 3 sacks already this year against them. So, my guess is he's going to break this record. I mean, the Ravens could triple team and make sure he doesn't get it. But it's only 1 sack. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm just going to move to some of the recent news. There's the draft order. Again, more news. The Buccaneers are going to cut Tony Brown. Let's see him cut first, and then we'll. Philly just don't want Tony Brown to play for another team right now. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. Henry again reports he's going to probably come back. We have some more transactions, and just more COVID, mostly for transaction wire. Nothing huge I want to talk about there. Looks like Mike Glennon's going to have wrist surgery. So it's going to look like Jake Fromm for the last game, which they're already hard to watch. It's probably going to be worse somehow. You got 2 injured reserve. That's not big impacts. Arizona's Shine Breland now. So it's another corner to help them. Trying to activate Jones from the COVID list. Nate Hobbs now DUI. And it's another story for the Raiders they have to deal with. What other news? I don't think there's anything else I need to talk about. Michael Gallup obviously got hurt. Looks like an ACL or something. And, the future of Denzel Mims, we don't know. A lot to go on. Appreciate you watching, and thanks for watching again, and bye.